G'day, fellow adventurer, and welcome. My name is Matt, and today I will be covering the most voted for class for my 4th Pathfinder 2nd Edition class overview, the Alchemist. To take a trip down memory lane, the Pathfinder 1st Edition Alchemist was one of my personal favorites. They had a lot of great class features, excellent and varied progression thanks to discoveries, and synergized well with many other classes. With a strong amount of starting skills and solid saving throws, the Alchemist quickly established itself as an incredibly unique and well-developed class. However, some disagreed. Some believe that due to how the Alchemist gained many different class features, extracts, bombs, and mutagens, and more that could be picked up through discoveries, the Alchemist was all over the place in a similar fashion to the Druid. In addition, there were archetypes that were almost must-haves, depending on the build. The Grenadier and Vivisectionist immediately come to mind, as the former strongly improves the Alchemist's bomb feature, while the latter trades away bombs completely in order to get sneak attack damage. The Alchemist had one glaring fault. It suffered from discovery taxes, with the most egregious ones being Effusion and Precise Bombs. The Alchemist is a buffer class, but could not actually give those buffs out to teammates without the Infusion discovery. It was available at 2nd level, but because one would need to give up another discovery to take it, one was often at ends as to which to pick, since you only gain one. Precise Bombs was another big discovery tax, as without it, you would often catch allies in the splash damage of your bombs. Precise Bombs allowed you to ignore a number of adjacent squares up to your intelligence modifier, and this effectively prevented allies from getting splashed. Have you figured out why I specifically called out the Grenadier and Vivisectionist archetypes yet? These archetypes both solve the problem of the Alchemist's dilemma at 2nd level. The Grenadier gives the Alchemist Precise Bombs as a free bonus discovery, without the loss of the discovery Alchemists would normally gain at that level, allowing them to grab Infusion as soon as possible. The Vivisectionist doesn't have bombs to throw, so they have no need to even choose Precise Bombs, allowing them to grab Infusion as soon as possible. With these two archetypes were so good that one would be foolish not to take one or the other, and in addition to that, the Vivisectionist was even considered so good it was banned from Pathfinder Society play. Moving into 2nd edition, it would be clear that the Alchemist's identity would need some refinement, and would still need to be unique enough in order to separate itself from the other classes. The Alchemist retains a lot of what it had coming from 1st edition. They are still heavily dependent on intelligence, and will receive 8 hit points plus their constitution modifier at every level. They receive expert saving throws in fortitude and reflex, and are trained in will. Unfortunately, Alchemists only have trained proficiency in perception, which is a bit of a downer since they also do not have any inclination to invest heavily into wisdom. They come with a nice array of skills, 4 to start, in addition to their intelligence modifier, which should give them 3 or more to boot. They are trained in all simple weapons and unarmed attacks, as well as alchemical bombs. Like in the previous edition, they only gain access to light armor. The Alchemist certainly gains quite a few class features, starting with alchemy right from the beginning. They first receive alchemical crafting as a bonus feat, which allows them to craft extra goods in downtime. This also gives them 4 additional crafting recipes right from the start. Infused reagents are the Alchemist's daily resource, and is equal to their level plus their intelligence modifier. These reagents can be used for either advanced alchemy or quick alchemy. Advanced alchemy is how the alchemist prepares for an adventuring day. For each batch of infused reagents spent during an alchemist's daily preparations, they can prepare 2 items of their level or lower from their formula book. They do not require a crafting check to create these, and the alchemist can use as many of their infused reagents as they choose for this purpose. These items will remain potent until the alchemist makes their next daily preparation, or 24 hours, whichever comes first. Quick alchemy is how an alchemist will react to the ever-changing threats they will encounter throughout the day. Quick alchemy requires 1 action, and the alchemist can spend an infused reagent to create a single alchemical good. This only remains potent until the beginning of your next turn. For both advanced alchemy and quick alchemy, the alchemist will not need to spend any money or other resources to create these items. The alchemist's formula book will start off with 8 total formulae, 4 from alchemical crafting, 2 from their research field, and an additional 2 free formulae from selecting the class. At each additional level, you will learn 2 more formulae, and in addition to being able to find more like a wizard would copy spells. Finally, it is also possible to invent your own formulae with the help of the inventor's skill feat. The alchemist's research field gives them additional bonuses and will be covered later. The bonuses at later levels will further improve upon this decision. The alchemist's increases to their saving throws, perception, weapons, and armor are all middling at best. They must wait until 9th level to become an expert in perception, and will never reach master. This is 2nd worst in the game, only behind the champion in terms of progression. Their saving throws aren't great either, as they must wait until 7th level to become an expert in will saves, and 11th to become a master in fortitude, and 15th for reflex. Alchemists will not become legendary in any saving throw. Their skill feats and increases are standard fare. Getting expert in weapons at 7th level is great, but not receiving mastery is a problem. Armor expert doesn't come until 13th level, which is really late, and they do eventually get master at 19th level. Class DC is pretty standard as well, expert at 9th level, and master at 17th is about normal for non-caster classes. The Alchemist, thanks to their strong intelligence score, will be able to invest in quite a few skills. The first, which all alchemists receive, is crafting. This allows them to prepare many goods that any adventure team will benefit from. Medicine, once again, is an important skill for alchemists to have, since they can also provide first aid in a pinch. The Chirurgeon archetype gets a special mention here, as if they have the proficiency with medicine, they may use a crafting check instead. This allows them to focus on increasing their crafting skill, which is based off intelligence, in order to not to have to split their skill increases between the two. With special elixirs to give themselves additional vision and movement qualities, the alchemist can also act as a semi-reliable scout. However, one needs to be sure that they take canny acumen early on, to keep their perception scores on pace with the more dedicated scouts. The alchemists, thanks to their natural inclination to have a strong intelligence score, make for decent librarians as well. The 4 other intelligence-based skills, Arcana, Occultism, Society, and Lore, will come in handy for an alchemist to have in order to broaden their horizons. The Bomber archetype allows one to add 2 first-level alchemical bombs to their formula book as soon as the research field is selected. In addition, the Bomber gains the ability to deal splash damage only to the primary target, instead of affecting the area around them as well. If the party has a bunch of melee-based characters, this is a great boon to prevent any accidental friendly fire. At 5th level, the Bomber may create 3 bombs of their choice when using an infused reagent to perform advanced alchemy, instead of 2 of the same bomb. This gives the Bomber a lot of versatility when ensuring that they will have the correct bomb and damage type for the enemies they might encounter. Their perpetual infusions allow them to create 2 bombs of the following listed whenever they are using quick alchemy, and they do not need to expend any infused reagents in order to do so. With perpetual potency and perfection, these will increase from the lesser version to the moderate and then the greater versions. The Bomber will also be able to increase their splash radius to 10 feet at 13th level, which could be handy against swarms and clusters of enemies. The Chirurgeon sadly does not gain the same amount of versatility that the Bomber gets when choosing their perpetual infusions. They are restricted to Antidote and Anti-Plague, and depending on what kind of situation one finds themselves in, can either be very useful or not useful at all. Elixir of Life was probably not selected as a possible option because that would mean that the Alchemist would have access to unlimited healing, which the developers clearly did not want to allow, despite the fact that the Champion's Lay on Hands ability exists. The Chirurgeon's abilities are very underwhelming, and though the 13th level ability is nice in that Elixirs of Life always restore the most amount of HP possible, I would have very much liked to see this ability come at a much lower level instead. Additionally, I would have liked to see the Chirurgeon be able to use the proficiency in crafting to replace their proficiency with medicine for trained actions as well as for qualifying for feats, which is certainly more important. The Mutagenist originally was in a really bad state, but gained an interesting ability post-errata, Mutagenic Flashback. Once per day, as a free action, the Mutagenist can activate a mutagen they had previously consumed during the day, and gain the effects of that mutagen. The Mutagenist is a brawler, growing claws and jaws to attack enemies through the Bestial mutagen, and can augment their physical abilities through the Quicksilver mutagen or mental abilities via the Serene mutagen. However, until the Mutagenist gains access to their greater field discovery, they can only benefit from the effects of one mutagen at a time, since they all possess the polymorph trait. Once they do get to 13th level, however, they can benefit from 2 mutagens at once. If another mutagen is ingested while both are active, the Mutagenist can end the effects of one of them, their choice. If they come under the effect of a non-mutagenic polymorph effect, however, the Mutagenist will still suffer the drawbacks of both mutagens while gaining the benefits of neither. The Alchemist's first level class feats are fantastic, and one should certainly choose carefully when deciding on which to select. I raved about how strong the Wizard's familiar was in that class overview, and the Alchemist's is no slouch either. They don't have an arcane thesis to give the familiar more abilities than it would know what to do with, but 2 is still alright. One of the most interesting options is the extra reagents ability, where the Alchemist will gain an extra infused reagent each day. This also allows the Alchemist to send it off to scout for enemies or hazards, and is free to replace with a week of downtime. Though the Alchemist will not be able to improve their familiar, which is a shame, simply having one is still a fantastic boon. Alchemical Savant is an interesting option. It would never be my first choice, but it has some positive qualities. Turning the Identify Alchemy ability from 10 minutes into a single action can be quite helpful, and preventing critical failures when identifying an alchemical item already in your formula book is also nice to have. Far Lobber is a nice feat to have as it increases the bomb range from 20 to 30 feet. This can possibly save a stride action to get where you need to go, and can instead stand back a bit farther when chucking your bombs. This feat is not so strong by itself, but pairs nicely with the final first level Alchemist feat. Quick Bomber is, in my opinion, the best feat an Alchemist can pick, and it is available right from level 1. Saving an entire action on drawing a bomb makes the Alchemist's action economy much better, and keeps them competitive with other classes at early levels in terms of damage output. Not needing to spend an action every time to draw the weapon you want can make a massive difference in an encounter scenario, and this feat should be considered even by Chirurgeons and Mutagenists. I cannot understate the raw power this feat provides, and every bomber should select this feat at first level without hesitation. Later class feats are there to improve the efficiency of the bombs and elixirs the Alchemist can provide. Poison resistance is also nice, considering there are creatures that can deal poison damage, as well as traps that can inflict many nasty different types of poisons. It is quite common to occur, and as a result, is worth spending a feat on if you're nervous about them. Now is also a fantastic time to talk about additive feats. Extra actions can be spent in order to add additional traits to both bombs and elixirs. Only one additive can be added to any given alchemical good, and certain ones can only be used with quick alchemy, such as smoke bomb. The number that follows the additive trait indicates the level of the additive. You will add this to your item, and it cannot exceed your advanced alchemy level, which is equivalent to your level. Powerful alchemy is a great feat to pick up down the line, as the DC of the quick alchemy items are now equivalent to your class DC instead of having to use the item's DC. You also might have noticed that I did not mention any mutagen related feats in this list. That is because I think that mutagens in this edition are trap options and should be ignored as often as possible. None of the benefits that are provided by any of these feats have any sort of relevant merit and are too limited in scope in order to be useful outside of very specific situations. I would personally avoid all of these items altogether, but you are certainly more than free to try to make them useful. The utility that the Alchemist can provide is, in my opinion, second to none. Starting play with the alchemical crafting feat and many formulae at their disposal makes the Alchemist a true jack of all trades. Where they really shine is being able to have access to all sorts of healing and remedies, and this list will only increase for free as they level up. They can also learn additional formulae to further improve their versatility by spending downtime. In combat, the Alchemist's strongest suit is acting as a blaster, using ranged strikes with their bombs in order to deal specific types of energy damage, with persistent damage to boot. They unfortunately do not have the same abilities that the casters have. By that, I mean that they do not have access to cantrips that they can fall back on once they've exhausted all of their strongest spells. As a result, the Alchemist will need to carefully select how they use their daily resources such that they don't get caught unprepared. Later levels alleviate this problem with their perpetual infusions. Unfortunately, they have to wait until 7th level in order to get this ability, which is the same point where the casters will have access to 4th level spells, and their abilities will be heightened to those points as well. They will more than likely also have focus spells available, which gives them additional powers that can be recharged throughout a day. As a buffer, the Alchemist's elixirs can provide nice benefits to the rest of the party, but there are two situations that make this problem cumbersome. The Alchemist must choose to either expend the elixirs before the fight, which can be tricky depending on the scenario. Alternatively, they can use their actions to force feed the elixirs to the rest of the party, but that puts them into melee range more likely than not, and the Alchemist is too frail to want to stay there. Probably the worst case scenario is the Alchemist giving the elixirs to the rest of the party and then expecting them to burn 2 actions during a turn to make use of these elixirs, which is unrealistic. However, the best way the Alchemist can act as a buffer is with the Familiar. Giving them manual dexterity such that they can reasonably transport and deliver the elixirs is a fantastic way to make good use of action economy for everyone in the party. This allows the Alchemist to work as an effective buffer, but doesn't quite have the raw efficiency of Inspire Courage, Inspire Defense, and at later levels, Inspire Heroics. The first build here displays the raw firepower that an Alchemist can provide. With additional damage thanks to her Ancestry feat, Charry's Alchemist's fires can be quite destructive. Quick Bomber is an absolute necessary on any bomber build, and she is no exception. She has selected all of the bombs available to Alchemists at first level, and will improve upon the Alchemist's fire and one other at later levels. This allows her to act as a great bomber, and the dexterity bonus from being a goblin certainly helps as well. Invictus is a medic through and through, and specializes in the healing aspects of alchemy. He takes the alchemical familiar in order to easily distribute his healing and buffs throughout an encounter, and also allows him to scout in case the rest of the party cannot. Otherworldly magic allows him to detect for the presence of magic, giving him even more utility out of combat. Antidote, Anti-Plague, and Elixir of Life are all mainstays of any chirurgeon, and the first two will be chosen for perpetual infusions at later levels, but it's not like he has a choice. The last build on display here is my best attempt at making a Mutagenist. The Mutagenist has no need for bombs and focuses on raw strength to power through encounters, thanks to either Juggernaut Mutagen or Bestial Mutagen. Natrium is all human and uses both of his general feats to ensure that he gets into the fray first and is the last to leave. He also takes the Alchemical Familiar such that it can retrieve his mutagens and force feed them in order to keep up with his action economy. All in all, the Alchemist does lose quite a bit of power going through additions. Their bombs are the only things that remain as potent, as mutagens are significantly weaker in 2nd edition. The bomber is certainly the most effective research field of the three, as the other two do not have enough going for them in order to merit viability. Elixirs and mutagens can be crafted by the bomber and are no weaker than the chirurgeons and mutagenists, respectively. As such, your primary role in combat will be dealing damage and inflicting as much persistent damage as possible. Being able to create a weapon with a damage type of any element is quite nice, and at later levels, using resources for other abilities instead of only bombs is also a fantastic trait to have. The main issue with the Alchemist is that they are an incredibly multiple ability dependent class. If they are not spec'd into the Chirurgeon archetype, which isn't even a good one, they will either require a strong strength score for their strikes or a strong dexterity score for their bombs. If the Mutagenist could take strength as their key ability score, and likewise for the bomber with dexterity, the class would probably be improved by some degree. However, that isn't the case. In terms of what the Alchemist brings to the table other than damage, they will be the primary source of utility thanks to their crafting ability. With alchemical crafting as a free skill feat at first level, they will have access to plenty of different types of curatives and remedies for ailments that might afflict your party. Additionally, thanks to how improved the crafting system is, the Alchemist can also prepare permanent items alongside their perpetual infusions in order to distribute to teammates in the case that they need them. The Alchemist getting 2 free formulae of their choice whenever they gain a level only serves to reinforce this. With the help of skill feats, the Alchemist can truly become an amazing crafter. The Alchemist also serves as an efficient buffer and support class, being able to remove afflictions and heal, while also providing benefits to the team through the use of elixirs. However, the problem with this is that the Alchemist will either need to prepare these buffs before combat, or use their actions in combat to administer these items. It takes 2 actions to do this, assuming one doesn't need to move. However, what the Alchemist can do instead is command their familiar to deliver the doses for them. That way, the Alchemist can preserve their action economy to throw bombs at the enemy, or use any other actions they might need to. Still, it cannot be understated that the Alchemist is quite potentially the most unique class in Pathfinder 2nd edition, thanks to their reliance on their crafting abilities to adapt to situations. The Alchemist is limited by their daily restrictions as to how much they can create, but at higher levels, they wean off this dependence thanks to their class features. Alchemists might not output the biggest damage or have insane healing capabilities, but when you need something in a pinch, the Alchemist can provide it. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for additional content. I plan on releasing one video of this type every week until I have covered every class, so do stay tuned. I currently do not have plans on doing these videos in any sort of order, but I will be posting the next class poll on my Discord channel and on Twitter, which both can be found in the description. And of course, have a great day.